This is Dr. Mark Hitchcock, thanking you for watching another episode of Marking the Times. We appreciate you joining us for these videos every week. I hope they're being a blessing to you. If they are, tell someone else about them and have them join in as well. And you can send in questions on Facebook. And that's what I want to do today, is answer a few questions I received. They're some good questions. I enjoy these, and some of them are kind of easy questions to answer, and some of them are really interesting. One I got is, how long is a generation after the flood? So after the flood took place, how long is a generation? We know people before the flood lived extremely long periods of time. After the flood, it begins to drop really quickly. And by the time you get to Psalms, David writes that, our strength is 80 plus 10 or 70 years. And if because of due strength, you might live to be 80. So, kind of a 70 to 80 year lifespan. Of course, with, modern medicine, people are living longer, healthier lives now. But I don't really think the Bible ever really defines how long a generation is. And what's usually behind this question is, remember in Matthew 24, Jesus gives all these signs of the times, and he says, this generation won't pass away till all these things are fulfilled. A lot of people try to relate that to the founding of the nation of Israel in 1948. Because it talks about when the fig tree begins to blossom, they take that to be the founding of Israel, and they'll say, well, from when Israel became a nation, that generation won't pass away till these things are fulfilled. And I remember when I was younger, people would say a generation was 40 years, so it had to be by 1988. Then when the Lord didn't come back, they had to say, well, a generation is 60 years. Now some people are saying 80 years. And of course, some people are saying, well, now it's 100 years, to kind of keep moving that back. But my view is I don't think that's what that's even saying in Matthew 24. I think the idea of the fig tree, Jesus is simply saying, look, when the fig tree begins to blossom, he says, that summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things, he's talking about all the signs that will happen during the tribulation period. See, when all those things begin to happen, that generation won't pass away till all these things are fulfilled. So what he's saying is the generation that sees the signs of the tribulation period, that last final generation during that 7-year period, that generation won't pass away till all those things are fulfilled. So I don't think we need to go around today trying to time how long a generation is. I don't think that's relevant really to Bible prophecy. Another question I got is, where is India in Bible prophecy? Now, I've never been asked that before. The answer is we don't know for sure. We do know that in Revelation 16, it mentions the kings of the east. We know they have to come from east of the Euphrates River because the Euphrates River's dried up for them to be able to make their way down into the land of Israel. So certainly India is east of the Euphrates River. They could be part of that coalition, but again, we really just don't know about any specific place for India. One other question I got, or actually it's a couple of questions here that someone sent in online, says, after Christ comes back on his white horse with his bride, he puts a stop to the war and everything happening down on earth with a word. Now, with all that being said, what happens at that moment to all the people on the earth that are not believers or chose to accept the Antichrist? Are they thrown into hell in their mortal bodies, or do their bodies die right then and they receive their glorified bodies on their way to hell? One thing is, lost people don't get a glorified body. They'll get a body that is able to endure the punishment and the fires of hell, but we wouldn't really want to call it a glorified body. But what happens is when Jesus comes back, all of those who are on the earth who are still alive, and many people will be slain at the campaign and the battle of Armageddon, but those who are alive, the Bible tells us that God will have a judgment of all the Jewish people. The Jewish people will go through a judgment, and most of the Jewish people, many of them will be saved. In fact, a lot of them will be saved at the moment of Jesus' second coming. But there's also going to be a judgment of the nations in Matthew chapter 25, where it says that the Son of Man is going to come and all the angels with him. He's going to sit on his glorious throne and gather them together like sheep and goats. He'll put the sheep on his right hand, the goats on his left hand. And it's a judgment of the living people on the earth. And those people who are believers will go into the millennial kingdom, the 1,000-year reign of Jesus on earth. Those who are unbelievers will be taken away and will be cast into Hades during that period of time. So when Jesus comes back, there's going to be judgments that take place, and those judgments will be judgments of living people on the earth during that period of time. And of course, the basis of that judgment will be their relationship to Jesus, to the Lord Jesus Christ. One final question here. It says, who gathers up all the bad people, or the ones who chose the Antichrist from the four corners of the earth? Is it the angels, or do we, the church, help? Well, I don't think we help out. I think, when we come back with Jesus at the campaign of Armageddon, he's the only one who is involved in the warfare, and he'll just simply say the word. 2 Thessalonians tells us he'll slay them with the breath of his mouth. And then in Matthew 24, and I think it's about verse 30, verse 31, that Jesus will send out his angels to the four winds of the earth, the four corners of the earth, to gather his elect. So the angels will gather everyone together. You also see that in the parable of the wheat and the tares, and the parable of the good and the bad fish in Matthew 13, where the angels are sent out, and they're the ones who gather people together for these judgments. So these are good questions. I like these. They're helpful, and I hope you enjoyed our time together. And again, if you did, tell some other people about this, and join us next time. God bless you until then.